We acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we live and work on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to country and their cultural beliefs. We extend that recognition and respect to all Aboriginal and First Nations people. Welcome back to Amy and I'm Amy Matthews and I am here today with Abby Guy
Hey,
and Millie Heffernan.
that's me.
And we are really lucky this academic month. I can't even remember what we call it. Like, is it just ACA month? Like
Yeah, yep. Academic
academic
month.
fiction. We're really lucky to interview both an academic and an author who writes about academic romance, Jodi McAlister, and an academic affair is our book of the month. So hopefully by now everyone has had a bit of a read. It's a really easy, quick read. I read it. I think you read it in one sitting, Abby. I think I might
I
have been one and a
did.
half, but it was
Yeah,
the
I read
same
it in
day.
one sitting. I picked it up and didn't put it back down, which isn't abnormal for me. That is my normal mode of reading. But I did read it very quickly and it was very good.
Yeah, it's a
It's a good
really,
book.
really engaging read. So before we're going to interview Jodi, I'm just going to tell you we're actually recording this after we interviewed her because it's a nicer way to, I think, introduce them is to not have them sit there while you brave about them and having to pretend that they're not blushing. But when we interview Jodi in a minute, we had a slightly unstable internet connection, probably on more than one front, like a few of us may have had it.
The weather here
Jodi's
is awful.
so Jodie's going to be just a talking black square for a lot of this episode if you're watching it on YouTube. But if you're listening, it won't make any difference at all. So if you want to know about Jodie, she's an author and an academic from Australia. Her academic work focuses on love, romance, and popular fiction. We actually have a special issue of Text, the Journal of Writing and Writing Courses, which is coming out in August that you can go look up. And Jodi and her collaborator, Dr. Amy Birch, have an article in that about the bonkbuster. If you don't know what a bonkbuster is, you need to go read it. And if you know what what Chili Cooper is, you will know what a bonkbuster is. Um, so Jodi's also really well known in Australia for her blogging about The Bachelor when she's had a big social media presence and also a big kind of cultural presence in Australia, like reporting on The Bachelor. And her first romance series was kind of around Marry Me Juliet, this kind of Bachelor series. She's currently senior lecturer in writing, literature, and culture at Deakin University in Melbourne and is the vice president of the International Association for the Study of Popular Romance. And so we're really excited to talk to her as an academic, but mostly we're really excited to talk to her as an author. So if you want to see these characters who kind of like got Anne Shirley Gilbert Blythe's energy, who are academic rivals to lovers. We've got marriage of convenience. We've got forced proximity. We've got a lovely kind of university setting for those of you who
Set in
love to be on.
Tasmania, which is
Oh,
beautiful. There's a
so
lot about
good.
wine in there if you like wine.
And we will talk a little bit about wine in a minute. So if you love all those things, come and listen to us interview Jodi McAlister. Welcome, Jodi. The first thing I wanted to ask Jodi, really, since we're all coming from the academy, is really around your career and how you started writing. Because I know you kind of started as an academic, but you've always written creatively. Like you've had quite a
Mm.
few books out, and romance has always been your jam. So, yeah, I was wondering if you could tell us the story about your career.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unlike many authors in Australia, there are a lot of authors in Australia with PhDs. There are many reasons for this, but one of this is because the PhD rather than the MFA is the terminal degree for creative writing in Australia. So we have many authors with PhDs who are sort of authors first. I'm the other way around. I was an academic first. So while I teach creative writing now alongside literary studies and children's literature and the thousand other things that I teach, my PhD is not a creative writing PhD. I have a fully exegetical English literature PhD. But I have also always written. So I wrote my first full-length novel, Libby Lawrence is Good at Pretending, the first draft of that when I was 20. It didn't get published for 15 more years, though it eventually made
And
it
it
there
came
after
out
I rewrote it
last
from the
year.
ground up
Last year it
four
was
times.
published.
2022.
2022, right? Wow, that
Yeah.
went fast. I feel like I blinked and lost a few years.
Yeah, so I rewrote that book from the ground up four times before it got published.
Oof.
So I guess this is a little story to never give up on the novel in your desk drawer. But my first published novel was Valentine, which is a young adult paranormal romance. We might call it romantasy now, but at the time in 2017, that didn't exist. But I wrote that novel at the same time as doing my PhD, even though it wasn't part of my PhD. And I think
So you
it's
did it,
because,
did you do it for fun?
yep.
Like, yeah.
I mean, I wrote it with the intent of publishing it. Like I was quite what am I trying to say? Industrially minded. Like I wanted this to be a book that would be on shelves, and I always had my eyes on traditional publishing in particular, mostly because self-publishing sounds extremely hard and I don't want to do all of that work. But yeah,
Agreed.
I wrote that at the same time as doing my PhD because why would you write one 100,000 word
I
document when
know.
you could write two
I
at the
was just
same
thinking
time?
I
that.
think my supervisor would not be entirely happy if I was also doing that.
Well,
Just don't
it
tell her,
was
Abby.
just different enough from my PhD that when I couldn't look at one, I could look at the other. So that's a young adult series, and I don't write in that young adult space so much anymore. But my PhD was on adult romance, and so it was different enough that it was a different part of my brain that was activated.
I was going to ask you about the PhD research. So, yeah. So, what text did you study? What were the research questions? Like, what was the PhD?
Yeah, so my PhD is on representations of female virginity loss and how they intersect with narratives of love. So I went back
Ooh.
historically to sort of the 18th century and the birth of the novel, but most of my energy was focused on the contemporary. So about half of it is about this like fascinating little, I mean, I don't know whether we should call it a genre because most of these books seem to be very unaware that all the other books in this genre existed. But there's a whole group of anthologies that are just non-fiction anthologies of people talking about their own virginity loss. And
Wow.
then about half of the PhD was on romance fiction. So there was a chapter on historical romance fiction, a chapter on Mills and Boon, and then a chapter on some very hot topic texts at the time, Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
Ah.
amazing. Yeah, because the virginal heroine is such a, I don't know, foundational figure for women's literature.
Oh
Like it
yeah,
just
big
like
time.
haunts it.
Yeah, she's there. And my ultimate contention was that usually the hero is the sexually experienced one, but the heroine is the one with emotional experience. And
Ah.
basically, when they finally sleep together, he catches feelings as an
Yeah.
STI.
So he's always like an emotional virgin, right? And yeah, right. I
Yeah,
like that idea of it being the STI. We actually quoted you, I think,
We
a
did.
couple
I
of
was just going to
times this
bring it
month.
up.
Yeah,
The
I'll leave it.
demisexual quote. I It
yeah,
was my favorite quote out of the whole thing. I thought it felt so funny, but so true. Just so true that he becomes what is it, obligatory demisexual, and
yeah,
that he stops being attracted to all the other women ever existed. I thought that's
yeah.
so funny, but so true.
I am quite
So,
proud of the amount of jokes I managed to get into that PhD.
It's
so then,
hard. It's hard to joke in the academic language.
Yeah, my tactic was to put in a lot more jokes than I thought I needed, and then let my supervisor argue me down so I could still maintain a level of joke. There's a tip to all PhD students who wish to maintain jokes in their academic writing.
so with your research, you're still obviously researching romance fiction and women's fictions, and I really don't like that term, but I can't think of a better term for women's fiction at this point since we all use it. But yeah, so what are you researching now? What's been the last year or so?
Yeah, so I'm about 10 years on from a PhD now. So I've been doing a lot of work in the meantime. I've done a lot of work on The Bachelor, which fed into my Marry Me Juliet series. I've done some work on dating apps, teaming up with the sociologist Lisa Porterland. I've worked on all kinds of bits and pieces, but I've got two major projects at the moment, both co-written. One is with Dr. Amy Burge from the University of Birmingham, and we are just about to enter copy edits for our monograph, The Bonkbuster, Women's Popular Reading in the Long 1980s, which is all about bonkbusters, sexy books from the 80s.
Oh.
So your Jackie Collins, Jilly Cooper, Shirley Conran, Judith Krantz, authors like that, books that are so thick that if you drop them on your feet, you'll break your toes.
Yeah.
And we conducted focus groups with a bunch of people who were reading these books in the 80s and 90s, as well as a couple of book clubs where we read a couple of them together. We read Lace by Shirley Conran and Rivals by Jilly Cooper. And we look in the book at the ways people experienced the books at the time and then the way they think about them now. So that's been a really, really cool project on a kind of missing link I think we have in the study
Yeah.
of romance
Mm.
fiction and women's fiction.
I have to
Uh,
say, having heard you talk on it, because I remember in year eight, everyone was handing those books around.
mm,
And I remember the covers so clearly and how, because they got passed around so much, the particular softness of the covers and the way
yeah,
the spines are all kind of bent and used, and it's a communal reading experience. But I was thinking recently that it's such a topical genre to revisit because it seems uniquely relevant again, like in the age of Trump and the billionaire, that
yeah,
those books were so much about kind of money and
yeah.
fetishization of wealth and all that stuff.
And Trump actually cameos in some of the books, but also particularly in the adaptations. So in
Oh,
I'll Take Manhattan by Judith Krantz, which is from 1986, I think, the heroine Maxie lives in Trump Tower and she is like always having a chat to Donald
Wow.
Trump. And then he plays
wow.
himself in the adaptation. He also plays himself in the adaptation of Lady Boss by Jackie Collins, which is really, that's a Me Too novel. That's about how
Yeah.
like sexist and misogynist Hollywood is. So interesting
Mm.
choice to cameo in that one, Donald.
Mm.
Um,
So do you still use, I mean, I guess because I want to segue across to the beautiful new book,
hmm.
do you still use your fiction writing as kind of something on the side that when you can't bear doing, you can't do another copy edit, you're like, I'm going to have some fun now and write a romance or write my fiction? Is that how you
Yeah,
still do it?
I do. And I mean, what I'm doing right now to speak to the other research project I have ongoing is I'm working on a monograph with Athena Bellis from the University of Melbourne about audio erotica. So apps like Quinn, Dipsy, Furley, MJoy. And I am working on the manuscript for that with her concurrently to writing the sequel to An Academic Affair. And that sequel is giving me a little bit of grief at the moment. We're in the kind of saggy middle section where it's just, I know what I need to do, but it's not quite coming out right. And so being able to like flip over to academic brain and be like, okay, let's talk about some audio erotica for 2000 words has been really useful. And I'm sure that dynamic will flip in a month or so when I'm like, oh, no more audio erotica. Back to
Yeah.
this nice book about wine.
I was about to ask, can I ask without spoiling, does it happen to do with a certain wine bar?
Sure does. So the heroine of the second book in this series is Fiona, Jonah's sister, and her love interest is exactly who you think it is. I won't
Brilliant.
I won't say his name for sake of spoilers, but if you read the book, it's not a surprise. It's exactly who you think it is.
Amazing.
Awesome. So do you find when you said you're having some trouble with saggy middle, so you flip over to the academic writing. Do you find being in the academic brain will then help you maybe pinpoint, because you're in a different way of thinking, what's going wrong with the novel?
Yeah, yeah, it can do. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of thinking about what makes audio erotica sexy, like what makes it work, because it's incredibly popular at the moment. And I mean, that has been quite useful for me as I try and write the sexy bits of this book, honestly. And maybe that's why I'm struggling with the middle, because we're not in a very sexy bit at the moment.
So what does make a good audio erotic book
I was going to
erotic?
ask, what have you found?
Oh,
If
I
you
mean,
can speak to it.
there are so many kind of different things here. If we got into it, I'd be here all day. But one
Yeah.
thing that really jumps out is how much they're about emotional care as well as sex. So a phrase that recurs over and over again, particularly in what we would call boyfriend audios, where the narrator is kind of filling in their second person and he's taking the role of the listener's boyfriend. Phrase that comes up over and over again is "let me take care of you." And it's often
Oh,
not just
Ah,
like sexually, it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
I've
yeah.
I've cooked you dinner, I've done the dishes, you don't need to worry about a thing.
That sounds
Like
great to me right
yeah,
now.
like lifting. Do you remember? I don't know. This would have been mid 2000s. There was a trend of gift books that were called porn for women, and it was all just pictures of men vacuuming.
Yep, yep,
Like
yep, yep.
yes.
that's kind of a little bit of what we're seeing here as well.
There's something very calming about having a voice in your ear saying, "Let me take care
Mm.
of you." Like
Yeah, and I
it
mean,
is very
Mm.
intimate.
Yeah, I mean that's another one of the appeals of audio erotica is the audio medium. Like if you're wearing headphones, that's someone is directly in your ear. Like it's quite a
Yeah.
Yeah.
physical, visceral experience saying, "Let me take care of you." And that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of men who take care of women, let's talk about Jonah. We'll
I was
Yeah.
try
going
not
to
to spoil
say because you,
anything.
yeah, without spoiling anything, I was going to say because you're talking about nice men, and I felt so relieved reading this novel, which was amazing, by the way. I really, really loved it. Um, Lots of people call me picky, and this was something that just
She
really
is,
hit all the
Jody. She
pieces.
hates everything. So the fact that she loves it is huge. It's like,
Um,
I'm very flattered.
Yeah, but my biggest gripe often is that I find the male character just isn't nice enough. And there is something so lovely about Jonah. He is just so gorgeous as a human being.
Yeah. So I really thought about how to do Jonah because I knew they had to be proper rivals, and I figured he has probably learned some very bad habits. Particularly, his dad is a like very senior, pale male, stale literary studies scholar. He's been brought up in this very particular, very argumentative way. And like he's learned to mansplain. And so the way I thought about Jonah is I can't make him, he's got to have bad habits, but I can't make him unbearable. So I needed to make him at heart have these very good, very kind instincts, even if he hasn't quite learned to express them in the best
Mm.
way. So
Yeah.
his rivalry with Sadie starts when they're teens because they get in a fight in a first year literary studies tutorial about the poem To Joanna by Wordsworth. Did I also once have this fight one day? Who can say? Am I still salty about it and convinced I was right? Yes. Um, Mysterious. But he really just picks these fights with her because he's so fascinated by hearing what she wants to say next. And he doesn't consider that she's experiencing this as a kind of aggression or mansplaining behavior.
Mm.
And so, because they've known each other for 15 years, a lot of the story of those 15 years for him is learning to mature and learning to overcome some of those bad habits he's learned and embrace
Mm.
the good, kind parts of himself.
Yeah,
I
the
think
fact that he even starts to unpick that sort of by himself was so cool to me and so refreshing that he was like, oh, actually, maybe I have the bad habits. Maybe I need to start working this out by myself.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was a very deliberate choice. I was like, it's not Sadie's job to fix him. He's got to fix himself.
Abby said earlier, trying to remember exactly how you said it, Abby, that when we read rivals to lovers, it's often that you don't get a lot of the background of them being the rivals. We just kind of jump straight into the trope because we're used to doing that. And the book tells us they are rivals, and we go, okay, that's great. It was very cool to see that little, even just the little build up of them and their history. And that the list of the ceasefires was so funny to me because it was like, oh, ceasefire five. I was like, well, it's gonna break because I know that there's a couple more ceasefires. So
So I really kind of struggled with how to represent the long history of their rivalry because, like you say, I didn't want to just be like, oh, they're rivals. Take me at my word. Like I wanted to make sure they had that history, but also it means there's a necessary amount of exposition there. So thinking about how I could get them to a place where, okay, we're picking up the narrative 15 years after they've met, but there's also all this history you need to know. It took me a while to work that out structurally, and eventually what I landed on, some eagle-eyed readers may have noticed that the prologue is structured according to it's a fan fiction structure. Five times two characters didn't do something and one time they did.
yeah,
And like that was really fun playing with like this incredibly online, very fanish structure and putting it in a traditionally published book.
yeah, brilliant use of it, I have to say, because it drew me in straight away. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Just what a different way to do it. Loved
It
it.
made you
Loved
really
it.
believe that they were competitors because, as you were saying earlier, I was saying that often you just thrown straight in, like we've said, and I never really believe it. Like I'm told by the author that they're competitors, but in this book, I believed it. And it also hit home as an academic, having academic rivals, granted, not in a romantic sense, but people that I compare myself to constantly. I was like, yeah, I can see this happening. This feels
Yeah,
real.
Mm.
yeah.
I also think like it's the promise of the premise, right? Is like, sure, we can believe it, but actually that's part of the fun is seeing it. Like I want to see it. And it was kind of fun. Like normally you'd maybe have it in a flashback, but front loading it means you're so invested in the two of them. Like, and you just know that they're misunderstanding each other and that he has always liked her. Like, you know it from the get-go. And I think that works so well. But yeah, it really delivers like from the first minute, I thought. Like I just have this
Mm.
picture of them in that kitchen and just being like, oh, I just want this to happen. I'm just here for the whole book until they're together.
Oh, thank you. And I really thought about what it means to write rivals to lovers rather than enemies to lovers. So
Mm.
I think for Sadie, for some of it, it
Yeah.
was enemies, but there is a turning point in I think Ceasefire 4 for her where she realizes that Jonah has, if not liked her, she doesn't work that out for a while, but that he has respected her all this time.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that to me is the core of the rivals to lovers dynamic, is that even
Yeah.
if you hate them, you have this intrinsic respect for them. And it's that moment when she's like, oh shit, he actually does have this enormous amount of respect for me and everything that I do. That is, even though it's years before they get anywhere, that for her is kind of the tipping point.
Can we ask about the setting, about Tasmania? Because I know there's
Yeah.
probably personal reasons why Tasmania is the setting, but I loved it. Like, and I know Millie was saying just before we hopped on air that it's so nice to see an Australian set rom-com and that it just kind of takes it to a different level, reading about your own kind of places.
Especially contemporary to like contemporary Australia. It was really nice, really different.
Yeah. So I really thought about what to do with the setting of this book, because my last trilogy, the Marry Me Juliet trilogy, everyone has identified that they are Australian, but I never actually say they're set in
Yeah.
Australia, which was a deliberate choice, at least initially, with Here for the Right Reasons for the first book. I was trying to do kind of what Sally Thorne did with The Hating Game, where
Yeah.
to me, an Australian reader, it is incredibly obvious that book is set in Sydney, but she tricked everyone else in the world. English people think it's set in London, American people think it's set in New York. And I'm like, no, it's definitely Sydney. Come on. Except I'm much worse at that than Sally Thorne is. So everyone realized it was Australian status straight away. And by the time I got to Not Here to Make Friends, I had just kind of given up the ghost. And Murray's pointed use of the word mate is incredibly Australian all the
Yeah.
time. But with An Academic Affair, I was like, look, if I'm going to write about academics, there's no fudging the details of what university life looks like because it's too different between different
Yeah.
countries to just be like, oh, yeah, they're in a generic university setting. Like, even just in terms of timelines, an
Yeah.
American PhD is 7 years and has a
Right.
bunch of exams in it. Like, it would look very different. So I was like, okay, we're in Australia. And my first academic job was at the University of Tasmania. And so I wanted to take them a geographical distance. I wanted to take them away from their old life to somewhere quite isolated.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Tasmania just felt like a gimme. Although I was very careful to state that in this universe, there are two universities in Tasmania
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah. I
one.
noticed that.
And they pointedly do not work at the one I worked at.
Yeah. So
Safe.
yeah,
Yep.
but then I was guess my question there is around, the university or academic romance as a genre has an idealized version of the university that you
Mm.
don't want to lose, even though you know the realism of it. So I was just wondering about how it was writing. I mean, I guess making a whole new university helps that's not a real one, but how you kind of created an idealized university.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that the university in this book is particularly idealized. I think it is a brutal neoliberal institution which will never love you back.
Yeah, well,
And that is I mean one of the lessons that you have to learn is that the real dark academia is having to mark 100 essays in 2 days, you know?
We were just saying before, I said it's so nice to read a not dark academic fiction, but also you don't have to make it dark. It's
yeah,
dark enough
that's
as it
right.
is.
Yeah. And so I really wanted to show, like, for Sadie and Jonah, and for me as well, I think some of the ideals of the university still mean so much, like collegiality, like conviviality, like the romance of studying, the life of the mind, and being able to pursue
Yeah.
your own interests. Those things I was like, yes, let's romanticize those. But also, I mean, anyone who's lived through university bureaucracy will know that there is not a lot of that can be romanticized. And
No.
so I wanted to show that even though they've kind of made it to the promised land, that perhaps this job isn't the happily ever after. The happily ever after is each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah, I
what a
guess
beautiful way to put it.
thinking about because we're all still obviously in university settings
Mm.
and thinking about that tension, Jodie, of like obviously there's the institution, but then the things that we love that pop up again and again in university set books, so things like the campus, like It's
Mm.
not being on Zoom like this all the time. It's like the actual campus is such a beautiful ideal. Doesn't matter what kind of campus it is. We
Yeah.
just have this idea of going to the campus. And I think there was something for me in the romance of Tasmania and the campus in Tasmania. Like, Tasmania is a small state, so a lot of the readership is probably not from there. So it
Mm.
has this kind of nice escapist fantasy to it as well.
Yeah,
And then,
well, it's kind of that small, the thing that you get with small town romance, yeah, where
yeah,
if you think
Mm.
about a small town in real life, a lot of them have, very deep problems. Like we look at Australia and the way small
yeah,
towns are dying because of climate change, for
yeah,
instance. But I think with Tasmania, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too with that small town. So they're in Hobart, which is, a city, but it's also got that very neighborhood feel in the way that Sydney, where they start the book, does not. It means that
yeah,
Yeah.
they can have their nice little apartment and it's not costing them the earth, despite what the rents in Hobart are like.
yeah,
It
yeah,
means they can have their local wine bar, which is like a cheers situation where everybody knows your name. There's that sense of community, which I think you can get in small town that maybe you don't get in urban set romance quite so much.
Is the
yeah.
wine
Definitely.
bar based on a real wine bar?
It is not, alas, based on a real wine bar. It is a fantasy, although I have been doing some wine events for this book, and I will for the next book as well, because it obviously has a great deal more wine content in it. So I'm doing an event tomorrow night actually where I've worked with a sommelier and we've broken the book down into 5 elements and we've paired a wine to each one. So I'm going to talk
Awesome.
about the book and he's going to talk about the
Brilliant.
wine and it's sold out. So we're going to do it again in August.
Can you give us a
Oh,
hint about
amazing.
what elements and what wines, or is it a secret for tomorrow night?
Oh, I mean, well, this won't be out by tomorrow night, so I'm sure I can
No,
tell
it'd be
you.
fine. So please tell us.
So we've done, I can't remember the specifics of the cuvées, but I can give you the overarching. So we've started off with a wine that's kind of about their rivalry and about how they're quite immature. So we've done a Pet Nat, a famously kind of
Nice.
youthful, immature wine. Then we've got a wine for Sadie, which because she's quite fiery, she's got a pretty swift temper. We've done a very lightly skin contact Pinot Gris from Orange, where the soil is volcanic. Uh, for Jonah, we've actually done a vermouth. We've done a Lillet Blanc because he
Oh my
is,
God, that is so perfect,
Ah,
Jodie. That
yeah,
is so perfect.
because he's classic, and he's got
Tweed
these
Jonah.
old-fashioned habits. Then we've done a pairing for Tasmania. We're going to use which is kind of a pairing to celebrate the bar in the book. We've done a Tasmanian gin that we're going to serve as a little gin and tonic. And finally, the ending, the happy ending, is a Brachetto from a winery here in Victoria from the Yarra Valley called Soma. And this is like a little bit pink, a little bit fizzy. Brachetto is actually the grape that Mark Antony courted Cleopatra with.
Oh my God.
And this
This is
is
like the
like
most romantic wine tasting ever.
it's a proper, it's impossible to be unhappy when you drink this wine. It
Yeah.
tastes like strawberries and cream.
Oh my
That
God.
sounds amazing.
Amazing.
Wait, I think we need to fly over there.
I feel like I need to write a book about wine so I can do the wine
Yes.
research.
So you can
Oh,
get a pairing as
yeah.
well.
Just wait
Ah,
until we do the pairings for the next one where the hero is a sommelier. That one's going to be
oh,
off
Oh,
the
that's
chain.
going to be fun. I
Oh,
feel like you need to do that
amazing.
at some big national event where we can all come. We need to all be there. So speaking of the next book, you mentioned you're middle.
Mm.
Can you tell us a bit about your writing process? What does it look like for you? Like, what does a week look like?
Yeah,
Are you a binger or are you an everyday person?
I'm an everyday person. The only book I've ever binge written in my career was Here for the Right Reasons, which is the first of my Marry Me Juliet trilogy. But that's because it was COVID lockdown and something in my brain broke. And like the first draft of that book I wrote in 3 weeks. And then I like went and fixed it because a book that you write in 3 weeks is not going to be
Yeah.
very good. But that's the only time I've ever binge written. I'm mostly a quite everyday disciplined person. And I have worked out over the years that my brain turns off at about 4 p.m. So I do my writing in the mornings. I get up
Right.
very early and
Wow.
I write usually from anywhere from 5 to 6 a.m. through to 9:30, maybe 10, depending on how much I have going on. And then I go about the rest of my academic work day. So I can eat into my academic day a little bit because I am employed as, among other things, a creative writing lecturer. But then
Yeah.
I, also have the rest of my job to do, it turns
Yeah, yeah.
out.
Mountainous
Ugh.
job to do. So, how long did it take you to work out that process, like that mornings were best for you? Because I know some people it takes them a little while to work out how they work.
Yeah, so it took me probably a couple of books before it really solidified. Like when I was writing Libby Lawrence from the ground up 4 times, I didn't know what I was doing for at least the first two of those times.
Yeah.
Uh, Valentine, I was figuring it out, which is my first book, but by Ironheart, which was the second, I was like, okay, never try and write at night. That doesn't go well for you at all, Jodi. You just end up, like when you wake up in the middle of the night and you write
Yeah.
nonsensical things. That's what it looks like if I try and write after about 6 p.m.
Ah,
So early mornings it is.
I wanted to circle back to the book because I
Go for
find
it.
obviously the heart of the book is the romance between Sadie and Jonah.
Yeah.
But there is so much in this book about siblings as well. And I was wondering if you could talk to that at all, because the sister relationships in this book are so fleshed out and so important.
Yeah, yeah. So that was one of the first things I knew about this book. But the first thing was like, okay, we're writing about academics. And then I kind of figured out what that Sadie Jonah kind of arc would look like. And from there, I was like, okay, no, I want to write about siblings, which is something that has characterized a lot of my earlier work, but I didn't really get to do in the Marry Me Juliet trilogy because all three of those books are set on reality television at the same time. And if there were a bunch of siblings there, I think that would have just made it very, very complicated. And so the way that I think about it is that Sadie and Jonah are obviously the heart of this book, like Fiona and Satoshi. Oh, sorry, spoilers, it's Satoshi. Fiona and Satoshi will be the heart of the next book, but the sibling stuff is going to be the heart of the trilogy.
Oh, I love it. I love it a lot. I feel like it really gives, if as you're planning to put this into a series, following siblings give it so much heart.
Mm.
And so,
And I have a lot of siblings personally. I'm the oldest of five, so these are some of the
Five.
ah.
yeah, these are some of the most important relationships in my life and my relationships with my siblings. And by the time we get to Chess's book, all my feelings about being an oldest daughter are gonna come out big time. That one's gonna be very triggering for the fellow oldest daughters out there.
Even this one was a little, as an eldest daughter, was a little. I was like, I was so mad at Chess through the whole book. I was so angry at her. I was like, I know there's going to be some kind of misunderstanding and it's all going to be okay, but I was so angry. But the second that Jonah was really angry at her as well, I was like, hey, hey, back off, man. All right, she's got her reasons, okay?
Yeah, like
I love Chess.
I considered strongly how to do that fight between Sadie and Chess. I don't think it's spoilers to
Mm.
say that they have a fight at some point. And I was like, okay, what is the most hurtful thing one of my younger siblings could say to me? And then I put it in the book. And it got questioned a couple of times during the editorial process. And I was like, no, trust me, there is nothing Sadie can say to her that will hurt more than this. And yeah, this will be Chess's trauma going forward. There's some spoilers for a book that'll be out in, I don't know, a few years.
Many years. Well, I hope she gets that therapy that they talked about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, she'll be on her own journey, don't worry.
I feel like the other thing we have to talk about is the footnotes in
Mm.
the book. Like, what, I'm sure you'll get a million questions about this because it's such a cool concept, but what inspired you to put the footnotes in?
So it was an accident, really. It was one of the first things I worked out about Jonah's voice. When I first tried to write in his voice, I kept going on these very long parentheticals. And like I
Ah.
would have like whole paragraphs that were in parentheses. And then I just had this like click moment about what kind of scholar he was. And I was like, oh, you're a footnotes boy. Which
Right.
honestly, personally, is a style of scholarship I don't have a huge amount of patience for. I'm like, look, if it's that important, put it in the text. But given the way he's grown up in this very academic
Yeah.
household, I'm like, oh,
Mm,
your dad is putting whole articles down in the footnotes. No wonder you use these. And then I started thinking about some creative ways to use them. And he is really desperately trying to sublimate how much he loves Sadie for a long time. And the only place it
mm.
comes out is in the footnotes. And I've told the story on another podcast, that rom-com pod, but the first time I had him admit to the reader he was in love with Sadie, it was in a 1,500 word long footnote that my editor did not let me keep. She was like,
oh, I
no,
want to see
think
it.
of the audio. She's like, think of the audiobook, even though that is exactly how Jonah would confess his love, is in this
Yes,
like
definitely.
Yeah.
epic footnote.
I was going to ask you about on your Instagram, you posted this really cool story about doing the research for the ring. I was wondering if you could tell everyone about it.
Oh, yeah, Sadie's engagement ring.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the most interesting things about really high concept romance tropes, like marriage of convenience in this book, is how that would like actually work and actually look if you tried to do it in real life. Like my favorite example of this is The Love Contract by Steph Vizard, which just has the best conceit for fake dating I've ever heard of. I'm like, oh no, I believe that you could end up in this like wacky romance novel situation for this reason. And so I was like, okay, they've got a perfectly good reason to get marriage of convenience, but what do they need to do to convince people that they're married?
Mm.
And it's not like standing around and making out everywhere. The most basic thing you need is a ring. But they're both
Yeah.
like early career scholars. They're broke. And so I was like, well, what would they do? They went to Lavisa. And so I went to Lavisa and was like, okay, how much is it going to cost them to buy an engagement ring? And I bought a ring, which I now consider Sadie's engagement ring, for $27.99, which is exactly what Jonah pays for it in the book. And
So,
I found their 3 for $12 packet of wedding bands as well. And I really put some work in. What would
that's
it
so
look like
cool.
to cosplay married in contemporary Australia?
That means theoretically I can go and buy the ring and then I can be a real fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can.
I mean, I did it about 18 months ago, so I don't know what Lavisa's stock turnover looks like,
Oh, they
but I'm
turn it
sure
over
it's out
really
Mm.
there.
quickly.
But it
Uh,
does, though, it does make it more. That was one thing I thought actually reading throughout the book was that I didn't feel like it was contrived. We buy into tropes because we love them. But as I was reading it, I was like, no, no, this is so believable. Like, of course they would get fake married so that they could do the partner hire. Of course they would. That's
Yeah.
not weird.
Yeah. Like when I initially conceived of like this book, I was like, oh, they'll just fake date. And then I looked at practically what you would need to do. And when I realized that, yeah, the most sensible thing for them to do is get married, I was like, that was when I kind of knew the book had the juice, you know?
Yeah,
I was
Mm.
yeah.
like, oh yeah, this is a mess. This is the best kind of mess.
Yeah, it's so good because it kind of blends, it lets you blend so many different tropes. Like you've got the marriage of convenience, which gives you forced proximity.
Mm.
Like you've got the rivals, you've got all this stuff happening at once, which I think you do really well because, like you said, it's really hard to motivate it, like have it be really motivated. Do you have favorite tropes of your own that you
Yeah,
gravitate towards?
I really love Friends to Lovers. And so if you look at the Marry Me Juliet trilogy, those are three Friends to Lovers books in a row, which is why I was like, maybe
I
this
loved the
time.
first one. My memory of the first one was because no spoilers because she gets voted out pretty early on, but then she
Mm.
stays on the show. Is her in that they make her look kind of frumpy, right?
Yeah,
And she's
yeah.
in the cardi out and they're just having those chats, like him
Mm,
debriefing. And that was I just have such a vivid memory of it. And it just felt kind of cozy but friendly, but and she gets to be herself. And
mm.
I'm with you on your Friends to Lovers books.
Yeah. I mean, that was me kind of really playing with fake dating as a trope as well, because it's like they're not fake dating, they're fake, incredibly platonic. Uh, but yeah, I really like Friends to Lovers. Fiona and Satoshi's book, which I'm working on at the moment, is obviously Friends to Lovers with, do I want to? No, it's not Second Chance because it's not their second chance. It's just she's come off this horrible
Right.
divorce.
Yeah.
But the thing that really appeals to me about Friends to Lovers is that I like romances about two people that like each other.
Yeah.
And this is why I can struggle with enemies to lovers sometimes, and which is why I thought a lot about how to do the rivals in this book and how the respect for me is really core to it. Like when people just hate each other and they have no time for each other and no respect or even basic liking for each other, that for me is a higher bar to clear, even though you might have
Yeah.
an easier time of creating passion. Like
Yeah.
I I want to know that these two people genuinely care for each other and get each other and understand each other. So Friends to Lovers will always be my fave, I think.
We've probably got a question for you around passion because we've been talking about it a bit on and off around in romance. Often passion is like there's a shortcut to passion through that kind of aggression or not
Mm.
liking each other or suppressed violence or and then thinking about how we actually frame passion. Like, can you actually have a kind of gentle, respectful passion?
Yeah. So the scholar for me that's been the most useful in thinking through kind of ideas of passion is David Shumway and his book not Married Love, Modern Love. So he argues that there are kind of two discourses of romance, one that he calls romance, but I think passion is probably the better name for, honestly, which you see particularly in a lot of like 19th century fiction, where love is something that happens to you. It's this like uncontrollable thing that you can't fight. This like you fall in love like, and you can't stop falling, and some of I guess some of the anger that you're talking about there, Amy, is almost less anger at the other person and more
Yeah.
anger at the fact that this uncontrollable thing has happened to you and there's nothing you can do with it.
Powerlessness.
Yeah. But
Mm.
then Shumway argues in the 20th century, we needed ways to tell the story of coupledom. We needed ways to tell the story of a marriage, not just getting people to the point of being married. And he argues there we see the rise of the discourse of intimacy, which is all about emotional closeness and knowing and being connected to this one person above all others. And I think I think that you can do passion there, but to me that intimacy is what's going to make the happy ending land. When you
Yeah.
believe that these two people are right for each other in a way that they are not right for anyone else. Like I can't go
Mm.
send off Jonah to be with some other
Yeah.
woman because it will just
Yeah.
Yeah.
always be Sadie.
Yeah.
And I thought about this a lot when writing Murray and Lily in Not Here to Make Friends as well, because like they are both borderline sociopaths. Like
Yeah.
they don't work with other people, even though they both really try throughout the course of their long history in the book.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think passion and intimacy are both very important in romance writing. But if you had to pick one, I think for me, the intimacy is at the heart of the romance.
I
Um,
agree. I 100% agree. I think it's very easy to write that. It's very easy to write two characters having sex. It's less easy to write them truly falling in love. So
Mm,
it's harder to buy that. But with this book, like they still had that beautiful, passionate, like when they finally come together scene,
mm,
but it had none of that anger and none of that like that violence that Amy talked about. It was all just, like you said, intimacy because they
mm.
knew each other so well by that point. So I just really liked that. It was like a breath of fresh air.
I mean, also the other, I guess, trick I had in my arsenal here is that this book is slow burn. So
yeah. I love
like
slow burn.
Definitely.
that they've
Yep.
been this has been simmering for a while when it finally comes to the boil.
Mm,
And one of the things I'm now playing with in Fiona and Satoshi's book is like, what do you look like when that dynamic is a little bit different?
mm.
Can't say anymore, or that will be spoilers, but
Yeah.
Ooh, we'll just have to
the burn
wait.
is maybe a tiny bit slower in that one. And
Truly
so
slow.
yeah, so what does that look like?
I know it's been mentioned a lot, but I mean, this book has real Anne Shirley Gilbert Blythe vibes.
Yeah,
And that is like such an ultimate slow burn. Like it's so slow.
yeah. And I
And
mean that was
there's,
deeply on purpose. Like
yeah,
that's the reason Sadie has red hair.
yeah.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then I
absolutely.
mean I think most of us love that kind of academic Gilbert Blythe and Shirley kind of rivalry and he falls first and that suppressed feeling. I feel like Gilbert would use footnotes too, maybe.
Oh yeah, I think Gilbert, wouldn't mind a bit of a footnote.
And obviously, there's that moment towards the end of the novel, no spoilers, but it's very reminiscent of Gilbert giving up.
The school.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
school. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That happened in this novel, and I was like, that is that. And it gave me
Yeah.
feelings.
that's so
Like I
Gilbert.
that is one of the moments that I thought about a lot when I was writing that book. And another one I thought about trying to do this without spoilers is from The Duke Who Didn't by Courtney Milan, which
Yeah.
is a wonderful historical novel. And there's this big, what looks like external factor, which is like bubbling away in the background and bubbling away and bubbling away. And the hero is terrified that this is going to be the thing that rips him and the heroine apart. And then when it finally comes out, she's just like, I don't care. And having what looks like this enormous thing turn out to be this non-issue because the love they have for each other is so much more important is something I also really wanted to play with, to have this what is really a like big deal thing happen to Jonah and Sadie and then it not even be a question that their love for each other comes first. I That's something that I really thought about that Courtney Milan book a lot while writing.
Yeah, wonderful. We're actually out of time. We could talk to you for a lot longer. But I just want to remind everyone that Jodi McAlister's An Academic Affair is out now. If you're watching on YouTube, I am holding it up. It has just the most incredible cover too, I have to say. Beautiful cover. I can't wait to see the cover of the next one, Jodi.
Me
And if
neither.
and if you're interested in seeing more of Jodi's academic work, you can look her up at Deakin, so Deakin University, and check out her research page for all her publications and everything she's up to at the moment. Jodi also, along with Dr. Amy Burge, has an article in our special issue coming out with text this month. So you can check out her work on bonkbusters, which Amy and Jodi have just done the most incredible mapping of the bottom up. There was so much in that I
Mm.
just recognized. I was like, oh God, yeah, of course. Like I grew up reading those. I totally see all of that. So if you'd like to check that out, check out our tech special issue, pick up an academic affair. And thank you so much, Jodi. We can't wait to hear how your wine tasting goes. And hopefully hear about an event we can all come to soon. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining
yeah.
us.
Absolutely
Thanks
my
so
pleasure.
much.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you.
So, thank you for putting up with our internet instability. I think we've tried to record the outro a couple of times and my internet keeps like playing up. So, hopefully, you get to see this whole episode. But thanks for joining us. We interviewed Jodi McAlister with an academic affair. I just want to go to one of Jodi's lectures, I think.
Oh, I want to go to the
Oh, yeah.
wine.
Can we drink
Whenever
the
the
wine
wine
at the
was
lecture?
smart, I want to do that. I was so disappointed that the wine bar isn't a real place or based on a real.
Oh, me
We're
I
too.
going to
know.
Hobart this month, and or are in Hobart currently, and I wish that I could go there. I was like, I'm going to go to the bar that this is based off of. It sounded amazing.
I
Yep.
know. I love that in a romance where you just want to move there. You want to live in that place. And I think what she said about it having small town, like, not just Tasmania, but universities have small town energy. You have these
Mm.
communities, everyone knows each other.
Everyone knows everyone.
Oh, well, we'll sit with that. See, we're all in a university setting, so the romance is a bit thin for us right now. Um,
Just a little.
but it's not in this book. So head out and get yourself a copy of An Academic Affair and join us next week for book club, where we'll be talking about this with the large group. I actually think when we do book club, that Abby might actually still be in Tasmania while we're doing book club and will be joining us from Tasmania. So you can
It's
like
gonna
give
be
us
very on brand.
vibes, very on brand.
Yes.
So join us where I think Peyton, Justina, and Abby will be joining us from Tasmania to talk about An Academic Affair, which is set in Tasmania. So look at the links they go to for this pod.
Oh, I did it just for this podcast.
Just for the pod.
Never say I
The
don't.
whole trip.
So we'll see you next week. And we'll see Abby in Tasmania next week. And thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.